have the other. All right, I'm going to click this button. Let's get started. Good morning, everybody. This is I really like this quote, if I may. Right? The idea of being able to think of a thing without accepting it, saying, "Oh yes, I totally agree with that." That's kind of what we're doing with the logical arguments, right? We're examining somebody's argument without necessarily agreeing with them, saying, "Oh yeah, I totally agree with you. You're right. That is the thing that we should do." Right? You don't have to follow it. You don't have to agree with them to be able to understand their thinking, right? That's a good sign of intelligence there. Anyways, speaking of following thinking, today we are continuing with our deductive reasoning with the final culmination of all of this into writing a full argument from scratch. The whole thing, the whole shebang. Hey, here's some facts that we know. I want you to reach, maybe you'll be given a conclusion. Hey, is it possible that we can make this conclusion? Is that possible? Then you'll check. Okay, if I put these pieces together, do I get there or not? Or maybe you don't have a predetermined conclusion. Maybe it's like, okay, here's some facts that we know. What else can we conclude from it? And you will determine that conclusion and justify it using all of the tools that we've learned so far. Those 4 laws of logic are what helps you justify your argument. And I think many a geometry class has done their students a disservice because they have dirtied this wonderful word here. You may have heard before people complaining about the P word, proofs. It's okay, you can say it. Technically, yeah, what we're doing here could be considered a type of proof. Prove this. But everybody gets scared about writing proofs. Oh my gosh, oh no, what am I going to do? I don't know how to go from here. Relax, folks. Don't think of it as writing a proof, as this new-fangled, crazy thing that is hard and difficult. You're just writing an argument. That's the same thing we've been doing all quarter. Right? In its bare bones format, the simplest case is this 2-column format that I've written myself a few times as an example, because it uses as few words as possible. Right? This is a mathematician's ideal. Right? I don't have to add all this fancy, if I know this, therefore that. Right? Straight up, symbols, reasons. And so you have here on the left your statements in an order that flows somewhat naturally. Okay? You're going to start at the beginning with at least one of your premises. You're going to end with your conclusion, right? That goes at the end. And in the middle will be whatever intervening steps you need to state to make clear how you got there from here. And then on the right-hand side, we have all of our reasoning. Why are you allowed to say this? Well, I'm allowed to say this because I know how modus tollens works, right? I can say this because that was one of my original premises. That was given to me. Of course I can state that. I know that's true. We started with that. How do you know this last thing is true? Well, I know it's true because it follows the law of modus tollens. And for specificity, we'll say, oh, lines 3 and 4. If I combine these 2 statements with modus tollens, I get that. That's how that works. All of that is packed into here, just saying reason 5, lines 3 and 4 using MT. That's all it is. Now, if you wanted to expand from there, if you prefer paragraph form, you could write these out as a sentence. You could say something like, right? given if P then Q, and given not Q, right, we know that not P is true because modus, right? You could add all that extra in there and write it out as a paragraph form. Very doable. Right? That's kind of like what we did from the opposite of what we did from analyzing the movie clips we've seen, right? They spoke full of words. We translated it into symbols. We're going symbols. You could go to full paragraphs. Another way you might see this is a flowchart for more visual people, especially a more complex proof, where a single order doesn't always make sense. Like, well, I've got multiple things I need to pull together here that contribute to this final one. Maybe organizing it like a flowchart makes more sense to you. So you could set things up that way. Although, fair warning, if you are writing this up on the computer, it's going to be a little bit more involved. But you can make flowcharts on a Google Doc. It's not that bad. All right. So what you're going to do today is you're just going to complete exercises 1 through 10. Let me put a nice big red line here. Okay, stop here. I'll walk you through a couple examples so you can see the whole process here. And it's just putting together everything we have done so far. All right, any questions before we begin? All right. So, number 1, they give you your premises, and they tell you what conclusion you're trying to reach. Right? This is hey, can you prove that this is the case? Right? Remember, these letters stand for some statement, something. S, you know, all squares are full of right angles, something, I don't know, whatever that means. We're trying to prove that. We're trying to justify the argument that would go from this stuff that we know already to that we do not have yet. After we write that down, now we know this, and we can refer back to it and be like, oh yeah, I know that. See, I justified it, that was last week. We know that now. In these first set of exercises, they have already given you the statements in order to create the full argument that will go from these 4 to conclude that one. So they've filled in some things for you. All we have to do is come up with the reasons why. Why does that work? Why can I say this? Well, the first ones are usually fairly easy, because several of these on this list are straight from this list. They are the premises. They're the given information. So, if P then Q, is that on our premise list? Yes, it is. So all we have to do for the reason is we can write premise. Or you might see given. Okay? That's given information. That was told to us. How about the next one? Why do we know that if Q then R? Up there, that's a premise. Right, same reason. How about if P then R? If P then Q, if R, I don't see if P then R here. So let's zoom in. Focus on just those 3. I already have if P then Q. I know if Q then R. Why can I say if P then R? Because what? Yeah, we've got a match here. What is that called? That was one of our 4 laws. No, we still ended with a conditional. Law of syllogism. All right? And to be extra specific, let's go ahead and refer to law of syllogism on lines 1 and 2. You got to assume that the person reading these is lost at all times. Right? Provide as much detail and direction as possible. Right? So far, it's pretty simple because we've gone in order. Well, I've given you these 2, and then those 2 go together to law of syllogism. But I bet you later on, we'll want to refer back to maybe like line 2. And we'll be like, oh, we used this from line 2 and 4. I think that was one of the example from the example up here, right? This is 1 and 2, it's there. This is 3 and 4, right? Wait, modus ponens, did I use that one? Or was it still this one, right? Be very, very specific. Which ones did you law of syllogism together? The ones from line 1 and 2. Oh, okay, thank you. Right. All right, next up, line 4. If R, then S. That's a given. Line 5, if P, then S. How do we get that? That's not on our list. If it's not on our given list, we're going to have one of those 4 laws listed there. What's it going to be? What do you think? Syllogism again, right? Again, zoom in on we're on line 5, so just the 2 prior. If P, then R, if R, then S. Those condense down to if P, then S. That's law of syllogism, line 3 and 4. Okay, and 6, P. That's it. Oh, hey, that's up there. That's one of our premises, right? Okay. Notice that we did premise single. We did not list all 4 premises first. That is a thing you could do. Right? But we decided to only bring each one in as we needed it. I got this far. Now I bring in the next one that I can combine and get this. Now I bring in the next one, combine and get this. Right? And so it flows much better. Otherwise, you'd have a lot of these line references. Okay, I combined 1 and 3 to get this, and then this combines 2 and 4, and right? It'd be a lot of jumping around. Okay? So eventually, you will use up all of your premises. Right? When we get to, say, 5, 6, 7, you got to write your whole argument from scratch. Maybe make a checklist. Go off. Did I use that one? Did I use that one? Yes. Right? Make sure you've used them all. All right, almost done here. Line 6 was the final premise. We are concluding S, so we have therefore S. How did we get this S? Hint, hint, probably the latest premise that we just had to add is absolutely necessary. So what can this combine with that'll let us conclude S? Which law is that going to be? Say again? It won't be syllogism again because this is not a conditional anymore. Syllogism was you take two conditionals, shorten them into just one conditional. You'd still have that arrow in there. Now we've got just down to a single letter, which means it's going to have to be either modus ponens or modus tollens. Right? Process of elimination. I've got to use one of these. Can't be that one. Could it be modus tollens? Did we negate the conclusion of any of these conditionals? No, we didn't negate anything. Could it be modus ponens? Did we affirm the hypothesis of any of these conditionals? We stated P all by itself. Did that appear as the beginning of one of our conditionals? It did right there. It also did right there and right there, right? With this statement, we could modus ponens and we could conclude Q all by itself. We could conclude from here R all by itself if we wanted to. But we don't want to conclude those. We wanted to conclude S, right? So again, zoom in on the larger argument. Treat it 3 lines at a time. Here's 2 hypotheses, or two premises, 1 conclusion. If P, then S. P, therefore S. Hey, that's modus ponens. So this is the law of modus ponens using lines 5 and 6. What do you think? Any questions on that guy? No? All right, let's run through part of 5. Because this is where they only give you the premises and the conclusion. So you have to fill in how do I get to that. This one's going to look awfully similar, I think. Well, let's try it. When in doubt, you can always work backwards. If you know what you're concluding, I'm concluding S. So somewhere I need to use a premise that involves S, right? So that would be this guy, right? R leads to S. Ooh, if I knew R, I could know S. Okay, let's work backwards. How can I get to R? Look at the line above. I'm going to need to know Q, right? If I know Q is true, I could know R is true, and then I could know S. How do I get to Q? This line here says if I know P is true, then I can conclude Q. Hey, I know P is true. Right? So you could set this up a number of ways. You could go, we'll start here. P to Q. You could then go Q to R. And then you could condense that right there and say, aha, now I have P then R by law of syllogism. Right? This was given, this was given. And you could format it very much like the same way we did on 1. You could do that. Or you could go another way. You could start with these 2 guys. That's given, and I can conclude Q all by itself by modus ponens, right? And now I have that independently, and now I can say, hey, with that one I can bring in this guy was given, and from that I can conclude R by modus ponens again. You could go that way too, right? You've got a little bit of freedom here on these ones. There's more than one way to skin this cat. That's a terrible example. Why do people use that phrase? All right. It's up to you. Decide which method you like best. Final call for questions. All right. I will point out, if you are typing, okay, you can use, let's see, where is it on my keyboard? You have that symbol right up there next to the 1 key, just to the left. Right? You can use that. And if you need to draw an arrow, you can use hyphen greater than if you're typing your answers out. Right? And I don't know if Google Docs does this, but I think on Microsoft Word, if you do 2 hyphens and a greater than, it will automatically like reformat it as a nice continuous arrow. It will actually connect the symbols. So double check on that. But either way, right, I can see that's an arrow. So if you need to type that out, that's how you do that. Otherwise, what's that? Oh, the therefore. Yeah, I don't know. And we've got it's more of a right triangle than an equilateral triangle, but if you insist on typing everything out, I'll take that. Colon period. That's the closest. Yep. Yeah, we need a good typographical version. Problem is, mathematicians invented all these symbols before computers came along. All right? And nobody asked the geometry guys when they were designing the keyboard, hey, what symbols do you want on the keyboard? We weren't asked. All right. No questions here?